Welcome to your storytelling. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to subscribe. You know how some people proudly say they're off the grid? That was my husband. Every time someone brought up Instagram or TikTok, he'd roll his eyes and say, "Social media is poison." He even made fun of me for scrolling through reels before bed. "You're wasting your brain cells," he'd say, laughing as he kissed my forehead. At first, I thought it was refreshing. A man who wasn't glued to his phone, who preferred real conversations, who didn't care about likes or followers. I actually found it attractive. But there was one thing I didn't realize until much later. When someone is too adamant about something, they're usually hiding something. And oh, was he hiding a lot? It all started when I noticed a tagged photo that looked way too familiar. The man in the picture had the same watch, the same build, and even the same tattoo as my husband. But the name on the account wasn't his. Not even close. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. It could have been a coincidence, right? There are thousands of people with similar builds and styles. But the tattoo? That was one of a kind. A little moon wrapped in a vine, something he got in college on a whim. And the guy in the photo had it in the exact same spot, inside of the right wrist. The account had over 12,000 followers and tons of posts, all very polished. Fashion shots, coffee photos, gym selfies. The caption on the photo that caught my eye: "My favorite human, 2 hearts, #soulmate." My stomach dropped. I clicked on the profile and scrolled. There he was, my husband. Or at least, a version of him I didn't know. In this version, he wasn't married. He wasn't boring or camera shy. He was a single guy named Jay, who loved hiking, poetry, and apparently, his girlfriend. My hands started shaking. I had just entered a world where I didn't exist. I went through every single photo on that account, dozens of them, and not once did I see a sign of me, our home, our dog, nothing. It was like I'd been erased. In his posts, he lived in a sleek apartment downtown. Newsflash, that was our Airbnb during his business trips. He drank artisanal lattes. He told me he hated coffee, and he had a girlfriend who adored him. She looked sweet, innocent even, the kind of girl you'd root for in a rom-com. In the comments, she wrote things like, "I can't wait for our weekend getaway," smiling face with hard eyes, and "How did I get so lucky?" I wanted to scream. I was the one who cooked for him, folded his laundry, listened to his work rants. I was his wife. Yet here he was, playing boyfriend to a woman who thought he was single. And get this, his followers called them #goals. My marriage had become someone else's fantasy. That night, I said nothing. I acted normal. I made dinner like usual, his favorite pasta, extra cheese. He kissed my cheek like nothing was wrong. I asked casually, "Do you still hate Instagram?" And he gave me the same smug answer: "Wasting time for attention seekers." I nearly choked. After dinner, I watched him go into the bathroom with his phone. I waited. 15 minutes. 20. 30. When he finally came out, I asked, "Who were you texting for so long?" His face froze, then turned to a smile. "Work stuff," he said too fast. "Client emergency." Lie. I could see it in the way he avoided eye contact. The next morning, I used one of his old iPads he thought I forgot existed. Guess what popped up? His secret Instagram. Logged in. Right there. I didn't just find messages. I found DMs to multiple girls. Not just the one in the photos. My husband wasn't just living a double life. He was living several. I was shaking, but I did it. I messaged her. I wasn't cruel or dramatic. I simply wrote, "Hi, I think we need to talk. I'm his wife." The typing bubble popped up immediately, then stopped. For hours, nothing. I wondered if he warned her. Maybe he had seen something and tried to control the damage. But the next day, I got a reply. "Please tell me this is a joke." He said he's never been married. I sent her our wedding photo. I sent her a video of us at our anniversary dinner, his arm around me, smiling. Her reply broke my heart. I feel like I'm going to throw up. We started talking more, comparing timelines. And the worst part? We overlapped. He had kissed her the same weekend. He brought me flowers, just because. I cried. She cried. 2 women who thought they knew the same man, only to realize we never really knew him at all. And it was just the beginning. I spent the next few days in a haze, alternating between rage and disbelief. I knew I needed to confront him, but how? I couldn't just walk up and say, "Hey, I know you've got a secret Instagram account where you pretend to be single, and you have a girlfriend who thinks she's your one and only." That sounded insane, even in my head. So I decided to watch him. Carefully. I monitored his every move. He was slipping, though. He started staying late at work more often, coming home smelling like something I didn't recognize. He said he was on calls, but I'd overhear him laughing on the phone, saying things like, "I can't wait to see you, baby." I wondered how many other girls were out there, how many other lies he had built. The man I thought I knew, the man I married, had become a stranger, a man who had his life on social media and a different one in reality. I couldn't stop thinking about the girlfriend. Was she really that naive, or was she in on it? It wasn't until one Friday night that I couldn't hold back anymore. He was out, having drinks with friends. I knew it was her. I could feel it. He had been overly happy that evening, something I had never seen in him before. When he came back home, I was waiting for him. I had the iPad on the counter, the one I had used to find his account. "We need to talk," I said, my voice surprisingly calm. His face went pale, but he covered it with a forced smile. "What about? About your secret life?" I said, sliding the iPad over to him. The color drained from his face. He opened his mouth to speak, but the words wouldn't come. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. I could see him scrambling for an explanation, but none came. Instead, he muttered, "I'm sorry." "Sorry? Sorry for what? For being a stranger in my life? For leading two women to believe he was something he wasn't?" But even then, I still didn't know everything. He wasn't just hiding this one girlfriend. He had been playing us both for months. The next morning, after hours of barely speaking, my phone buzzed. It was her. I had messaged her our wedding date, hoping it would make her realize just how deep his lies went. Her message read, "I just called him. He said he was done with me, that I wasn't the one. But She paused in her message, then wrote again. "He told me that you were the problem, that you were too controlling and jealous, that he needed to leave you, but didn't know how to break it to you." The audacity. To think he was playing both of us, telling her I was the issue, that I was the one who was too much. I called her. It felt like the only way we could both make sense of it. She was heartbroken, angry, and confused. She had met him at a concert just a few months after I did. He had been the perfect guy, charming, thoughtful, funny. He made her feel seen, like no one ever had. She never stood a chance. The worst part was realizing she had fallen in love with him. She hadn't just been some fling. To her, it was real. I realized then that he was a master manipulator, a man who knew exactly what to say to get what he wanted. Both of us. At the same time. As I pieced together the timeline, it became clear how much he had been getting away with. He'd been seeing her since January, just 3 months after our anniversary. The same time he'd started working late more often. The same time I'd noticed he was becoming more distant. I found plane tickets for trips he claimed were work-related, but were actually flights to destinations he'd taken her to. The betrayal was suffocating. It wasn't just the lies anymore. It was the realization that every little moment I thought was real was fake. The quiet evenings we shared were fake. The trips we took together were fake. The intimacy, the inside jokes, the promises, all fake. And there I was, left behind in a marriage that had been nothing but an illusion. It felt like someone had ripped out a piece of my heart. I was mourning a man who never existed. But I wasn't going to let this slide. He wasn't going to get away with this. He didn't deserve to. I called the girlfriend again, but this time, I had a plan. I wasn't calling her out of anger anymore. No, I was going to get answers. I needed to confront him, but not just alone. I wanted her to be there. We both deserved the truth. When I called him, I didn't even try to soften the blow. "Get home. Now. We need to talk. And you're going to explain everything, to both of us." He came home in a panic. His face looked like a man who knew his world was about to fall apart. I had already sent her the details, where and when to meet. I wasn't going to let him weasel his way out of this. When she arrived at the house, his face went ashen. There was no running now. No more lies. It was time for him to finally face the women he had betrayed and the life he had built on lies. He was cornered. There was no escape, no way out of the mess he'd made. His face was pale, and for the first time, I saw genuine fear in his eyes. I could feel the tension in the room, thick and suffocating. The girlfriend and I stood there, watching him, waiting for him to say something, anything that would make this all make sense. But instead, he stood frozen, unable to speak. I looked at her, then back at him. "You owe us both an explanation. Now," I demanded. He took a deep breath and finally spoke, his voice shaking. "I never meant for it to get this far. I never meant to hurt either of you." He paused, as though he was trying to piece together a version of the truth that might somehow save him. I didn't know how to end things with her, and I didn't want to lose you either. His words were empty, meaningless. They were a man trying to save his own skin, not a man owning up to his wrongs. The girlfriend turned to me, tears welling up in her eyes. He told me you were crazy, that you'd never understand. I felt a wave of betrayal wash over me again, but this time, it wasn't just from him. It was from all the lies he had fed us both. The room fell silent. I couldn't look at him anymore. I didn't want to. I wanted to leave, to forget this whole nightmare ever happened. But I knew I couldn't. Not yet. The girlfriend, whose name was Emily, sat down beside me, her face pale and trembling. I could feel her pain. She was in the same position I had been just days ago, betrayed, heartbroken, lost. And as much as I hated him, I realized she didn't deserve this either. She was just another victim in his web of lies. He looked at both of us, his voice weak. I'm sorry. I didn't want to hurt you. That was it. That was all he said. No deep reflection. No understanding of the damage he had caused. Just a shallow apology to try and undo the mess he'd created. But it wasn't enough. It would never be enough. Emily stood up and walked toward the door. I can't do this anymore. I'm done. And with that, she left. I watched her go, and for a moment, I felt something I didn't expect, empathy. We were both in this together, connected by one man's lies. After Emily left, it was just me and him. He stood there, staring at the floor, unable to meet my eyes. I knew I had to make a decision. A big one. Could I forgive him? Could I stay with a man who had lied to my face for months, who had built an entire life behind my back? Could I trust him again? The answer was clear. I couldn't. I wasn't sure what I was going to do next, but I knew I couldn't keep living in this toxic, fake reality. I had to take back control of my life. I needed space, time, and freedom from the lies. I looked at him one last time. I'm done. We're done. The words left my mouth like a weight lifted off my chest. He opened his mouth to protest, but I didn't give him the chance. No more lies. No more excuses. I can't do this anymore. And with that, I turned and walked away, not knowing what the future held, but knowing it would be better than living a lie. The days after the confrontation were a blur. I didn't know where to go, what to do. I felt like I was floating, caught in the aftermath of his betrayal. But then, a strange thing happened. He started begging. He sent texts, emails, voicemails, anything he could think of to make me reconsider. I'm so sorry, he wrote. I messed up. Please don't leave me. But the more he begged, the more I realized he wasn't sorry for the right reasons. He wasn't sorry for hurting me. He was sorry because he was losing his grip on the life he'd carefully built. He was losing the two women who had been feeding his ego, who had been filling the empty spaces in his life. And I wasn't going to be part of that anymore. The most shocking part? As I began to pick up the pieces of my life, I found out that this wasn't the first time he'd done this. It wasn't just Emily and me. There had been others before us. Women who had fallen for his charm, only to be discarded when he was done. My husband wasn't just a liar. He was a serial cheater, hiding behind his perfect facade. The last time I saw him, he was standing outside the house, pleading with me to come back. But this time, it didn't hurt. I didn't feel the pain of love lost or the grief of betrayal. I just felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just emptiness. I knew what I had to do, and it wasn't going to be easy. It's over, I said softly, though my voice shook. You've had your chance. I'm moving on, and you need to too. He didn't say anything else. He just stood there, as though waiting for me to change my mind. But I couldn't. Not anymore. I had spent months, years even, living in his shadow, being manipulated, lied to, and kept in the dark. And now, it was time to take my life back. I walked away, and for the first time in a long while, I felt free. I didn't know what my future would look like, but I knew I was going to be okay. I had learned the hardest lesson of all. Sometimes, the only way to move forward is to let go of the past. The days that followed felt like a blur of emotion. I spent my time in silence, reflecting on everything that had happened. It wasn't just about him, it was about me. I had lost myself in the process of trying to be everything for him. His lies, his manipulation, they had taken pieces of me that I now had to reclaim. It was hard, but every day felt like a step toward rediscovering who I was before him. I started doing things I loved again. I painted. I ran. I talked to friends I had lost touch with. I reconnected with my passions, and with them, I began to heal. The anger still simmered under the surface, but it wasn't controlling me anymore. I wasn't going to let it define who I was. I was taking back my life, piece by piece. One evening, a few weeks after the separation, I was sitting with a friend at a cafe. We were talking about the past, about everything that had happened. She looked at me and said, "You know, you deserve so much better than him." At first, I laughed it off, but as I thought about it, her words started to sink in. I did deserve more. I deserved someone who valued me, someone who saw me for who I truly was, not just as someone to manipulate. The idea of being treated with respect, of being loved without fear of betrayal, suddenly felt so foreign but incredibly appealing. I realized that I was worthy of real love, not the fake, performative affection I had gotten from him. And that realization changed everything. It gave me strength I didn't know I had. I wasn't going to settle for anything less than real happiness from here on out. I decided to start fresh, physically, emotionally, and mentally. I moved to a new apartment. The old one, filled with memories of him, was too much. I needed space to breathe, to build a new version of myself, one free from the chains of his lies. The new place was simple, cozy, and everything I needed. I started going out more, meeting new people, and focusing on the life I had put on hold for so long. It felt good to be out of the shadows, to no longer be hiding in a life that wasn't mine. And then something unexpected happened. I met someone. His name was Ryan. We met through a mutual friend, and he was kind, gentle, and, most importantly, honest. He wasn't perfect. None of us are, but there was something different about him. He made me feel safe, something I hadn't felt in a long time. But I wasn't rushing into anything. I had learned that rushing into relationships could only lead to more heartbreak. I needed time to heal completely before I could even think about giving my heart to someone again. One afternoon, a letter arrived. It was from him. I hadn't heard from him since the day I walked away, and I had no idea what to expect. I hesitated before opening it, but curiosity got the better of me. Inside, the letter was long, filled with apologies and regrets. He claimed he had learned from his mistakes, that he finally understood how much he had hurt me. But as I read his words, I realized something. It didn't matter anymore. His apology couldn't undo the years of lies. It couldn't erase the hurt or the betrayal. I had moved on, and his letter was just another attempt at pulling me back into his web. I tore it up and threw it away, not out of anger, but out of a sense of finality. I didn't need his closure. I had found my own. As time passed, I found myself more at peace with my decision to leave him. Every day, I felt stronger and more certain that I had made the right choice. The pain that once consumed me began to fade, replaced with a sense of clarity. I had let go of the man I thought I knew, the man I thought I loved. And with that, I had found a version of myself I had almost forgotten. I no longer lived in fear or doubt. I had freed myself from the lies, and in doing so, I had freed my heart. The road to healing wasn't easy, but it was worth every step. I was finally living for me, not for him or anyone else. It was my time now, and nothing could take that away from me. One day, a surprise came my way. I had been spending more time with Ryan, and our friendship deepened in ways I hadn't expected. He was patient, kind, and, above all, he never pushed me into anything. He respected my space and understood the pain I had been through. Our connection felt like a fresh start. No pressure, no expectations, just two people getting to know each other. We laughed, talked about our pasts, and even shared some of our childhood memories. And with each conversation, I found myself healing a little more. The walls I had built around my heart were slowly starting to crumble. But it wasn't about rushing into anything. It was about feeling safe again. With him, I felt seen, and that made all the difference. Despite all the progress I had made, there were still moments when the past crept up on me. Sometimes, in the quiet of the night, I'd think about the man I once loved, the man who had shattered my trust in ways I could never have imagined. His words still echoed in my mind, especially the things he had said to make me believe he was different. It wasn't easy to forget the way he had made me feel small, insignificant, and replaceable. But I was learning that the past didn't have to define me. I had a choice. I could either keep holding on to the hurt or let it go and embrace the new life I was building. It wasn't always easy, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going back. No matter how hard the past tried to pull me in, I was stronger than it now. One evening, Ryan invited me to a quiet dinner at his place. It was simple, just two people, a home-cooked meal, and some wine. I hadn't realized how much I needed a calm night until I sat there, talking to him about everything and nothing. At some point, the conversation turned to my past. You know, I've noticed how much you've changed in such a short time, Ryan said, his voice soft. You seem more at peace. More yourself. I smiled, grateful for his insight. I'm still figuring it all out, but I'm learning that I'm stronger than I realized. He reached across the table, taking my hand in his. You are, he said with a sincerity that warmed me. And I'm here for you, whenever you need someone to talk to, or if you just need someone to listen. His words were a comfort I hadn't known I needed. For the first time, I didn't feel alone. Just as things were beginning to settle into a new rhythm, I got an unexpected phone call. It was him, my ex-husband, the man who had torn my world apart. I didn't answer the call at first, but something inside me told me I had to. Maybe it was to finally put an end to all of this, or maybe I just needed closure. Either way, I picked up. I need to talk to you. His voice sounded desperate. I took a deep breath before replying. What is it? He hesitated before speaking again. I know I messed up. I was wrong, but I want to make things right. I felt the old emotions surge up, the anger, the sadness, the hurt. But I refused to let him have any more power over me. You had your chance, I said firmly. You don't get to come back into my life just because it's convenient for you now. I'm done. There was a long pause on the other end. And then, he simply said, I'm sorry. I hung up the phone, knowing that this was the final piece of closure I needed. There was no turning back now. As the weeks went by, I found myself growing more confident in my decision to move forward. I had taken control of my life again, and the path ahead felt clear. I wasn't going to let the past hold me back. Ryan and I continued to spend time together, enjoying each other's company without any pressure. I knew I wasn't ready for a relationship just yet, but it felt nice to know that I had someone in my life who respected my boundaries and supported me without any ulterior motives. I focused on rebuilding my career, making new friends, and enjoying life for what it was. Slowly, I was learning to trust again, not just others, but myself. And for the first time in a long while, I felt truly free. One quiet evening, as I was walking through the park, I had an epiphany. For so long, I had been focused on what I had lost, on the betrayal and the heartbreak. But now, with each passing day, I was beginning to see a future that wasn't defined by my past. I imagined a life full of possibilities, career advancements, travel, new experiences, and maybe even a relationship that didn't come with lies and secrets. The thought didn't frighten me anymore. In fact, it filled me with excitement. I could build something better, something more authentic, something just for me. And that was exactly what I intended to do. I wasn't waiting for anyone to come save me. I was saving myself. As time went on, Ryan and I grew closer. One evening, after spending the day together, he invited me to a local cafe for a late-night coffee. We sat across from each other, talking about everything and nothing. And then, out of nowhere, Ryan said something that caught me off guard. I have to be honest with you, he began, his expression serious. I'm falling for you. I looked at him, taken aback by the intensity of his words. Ryan, I started to respond, but he cut me off. I know you're not ready, and I completely understand that. I just wanted you to know how I feel. His honesty moved me. It wasn't often that someone could be so vulnerable. I took a deep breath, carefully choosing my words. I'm not sure what I'm ready for right now, but I do appreciate your honesty. I'm just focusing on myself right now, and I hope you understand that. He smiled gently, squeezing my hand. I understand. I just wanted you to know, in case you ever change your mind. One afternoon, I decided to visit my family. It had been a while since we had all gotten together, and I felt a need to reconnect with the people who had always been my foundation. My parents were thrilled to see me, and we spent the evening talking, laughing, and reminiscing about old memories. My mom could tell I had changed. You seem so much stronger, sweetheart, she said with a knowing smile. I've always admired how you handle things, even when life gets tough. Her words warmed my heart. It had been a long journey, but I was finally starting to see the strength in myself that everyone else had always seen. My family's love and support were more than enough to remind me that I was never truly alone. I had made it through the storm, and now I could finally breathe. A few weeks later, I ran into someone I hadn't expected to see. It was one of my old friends, Julia, who had distanced herself from me during my marriage. She had always been concerned about my relationship, but I had been too blind to see it at the time. As soon as she saw me, her face lit up. "I've missed you," she said, hugging me tightly. It felt good to be wrapped in the warmth of her embrace. Over coffee, she confessed, "I was worried about you. You were in such a toxic relationship, and I didn't know how to help." I felt a lump form in my throat as I realized how much I had isolated myself. "I'm sorry I pushed you away," I said, my voice cracking. I was so caught up in my own world, I didn't realize how much I needed my friends. Julia smiled, brushing away a tear. "We all go through things, and sometimes we lose our way. But I'm here now, and I'll always be here." Her forgiveness and unconditional support reminded me that there were people who genuinely cared about me. It felt like a homecoming. As I stood on the balcony of my new apartment one evening, looking out at the city lights, I realized how far I had come. The pain, the heartbreak, the betrayal, it no longer had a hold on me. It was part of my past, but it didn't define my future. I had taken control of my life, and now, I was ready for whatever came next. I had learned to trust again, not just in others, but in myself. And that, more than anything, was my greatest victory. I had learned that I was enough, no matter what anyone else said or did. And as I looked toward the horizon, I knew that I had the power to create a future that was mine, a future filled with love, joy, and freedom. The journey wasn't easy, but it had shaped me into the woman I was meant to be. And for the first time in a long time, I was excited to see what the future held. Thank you for listening to my story until now. If you liked the video, please support it by subscribing and liking.